Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Kevin.
Hi, Zelina. Good morning.
Hey, guys.
Hi, Zelina. Good morning.
Hi, Adrian. Is that right?
Yes. Good morning. How are you?
Yes, good. Well, I am. I noticed there are 8 other people on the call at the moment, or are they in the waiting room?
In the waiting room.
In the waiting room.
Okay.
I'm keeping everyone out so that we can just have a quick chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm also trying to. I'm tech at home. The internet seems to be down, and I've got 3 teenagers upset that they can't start school. So.
Oops. Oops.
So I've
Behind this composed exterior, I've got people like.
Tell them it's not your fault.
well, I've done my dance to the one of my gods, so I'm set. I don't know about you, Adrian.
Because I'm on Ethernet, but you know lah, the kanchong spider ones. The not so kanchong ones, I don't know.
Kevin, what's your routine to the internet gods?
I just like look at my StarHub app to make sure everything's okay. I check the StarHub
Downloads.
sites, and then it's like just pray like mad to my router.
Actually, I think the trick now is diversification. I think now we all in one home need to have a few different providers.
That's food for thought, actually.
But I don't know wholesale whether they all come from the same spot or not.
Wholesale, yeah, they only come from the main telcos.
Correct. So
yeah, so it's Singtel and StarHub. Even
So
M1 is leasing.
don't know whether it makes a difference to be diversified or not.
Well,
Stick
used
with the incumbent.
we used to be diversified. We used to have Singtel upstairs and StarHub downstairs, and it just didn't make sense. So what I call it, I installed Mesh. And
yeah, so that's what I did too. Yeah.
Just stuck with StarHub.
Yeah, that's what I did too. I went from, I had Singtel, I had My Republic, I had StarHub. Yeah, I know. And then I installed the Google Mesh, and it works wonders. So I can just walk upstairs, So now I did today because I'm having to speak. So I've decided to run upstairs to the games room at the attic, and it still works perfectly fine because I've got routers everywhere in the house.
Okay. So Zelina, before I let people in, is there anything that you need?
Well, actually, I was going to do a quick poll on Zoom, but I realized that unless I'm co-host, I can't do that.
No, we can make you co-host. No worry.
A co-host already.
It's a very simple. But why can I not see a whole thing here?
Do you want to send the question to me and I can type it in now?
Okay. All right. Okay. Because it's just very simple. I just want to know, who is new to mindfulness, who has a regular practice. Just 3, Kevin. So actually, I don't have to send you anything. I'll just tell you, and then you can just write it up. However, it doesn't really matter. So the three options are. So the question is, what is your experience with mindfulness practice? And the 3 options is 1, this is my first time.
Okay.
2,
yeah,
I have tried it before.
Yeah.
And 3, I am a regular practitioner, or I am a practitioner.
I am a practitioner. Got it.
That's it.
Morning.
Hey, Anne.
Hi, morning. Sorry, I stepped away for a while. You're looking good. Morning, Kev. Morning, Adrian.
Hey, and good
I
morning.
have 3 live sessions to do today, so.
Yay!
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's okay.
So Zelina, this is the screen. Can you see my screen? The questions are there. What is your experience with mindfulness practice? Answer 1 is first time. Second, I've tried it before. Third, I'm a practitioner.
Correct.
Okay,
Oh,
great.
that is so cool. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to start off with the poll. So Adrian's going to introduce you, and then you can welcome everyone, and then just let me know when you want the poll up, and I'll toss it up for everyone.
Okay, so here now I've got, okay, all right. So do I just say, Kevin, can you start the poll?
Mm-hmm.
And then can I just say, Kevin, can you share the results, please?
Sure.
Yeah, and that's all I need. I just want to know because it affects how I guide people.
Okay. And then, Adrian, you're going to cue Zelina at 8:50, 8:55.
How do we cue our hosts, our mindfulness guides in the past?
I don't think you need to introduce me.
I'll introduce you, but I mean, how, I think there is, unless she's looking at her screen, you can just type into private chat her.
Okay. All right.
Oh, as in tell me to close up because you need
yeah.
Yeah. Just write me a chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'll introduce you to the participants.
So what time do you all want me to finish? At 5 to?
Yes. 5 to 9. Yeah.
5 to 9. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Actually,
Okay.
Adrian, I realized that the mindfulness practitioner's bio is on hidden. You want to unhide that because I think we've got Zelina's photo and all that. But it's up to you.
No, it's okay. I'll read it up.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Perfect. Sorry for my look. I crashed last night.
Birthday hangover.
No, because my girlfriends wanted to get on Zoom with me, so we got onto Zoom at 9, and then one of my friends decided to play me a song on his new keyboard, and then of course he had to like muster up his courage. We had to get him beer.
Oh, wow.
Virtual beer.
Wow.
Wow.
No. He really went to get something to get himself a bit like high so he could play.
Okay. All right. Are we ready? The Indian natives are all restless.
Oh wow. Oh, by the way,
Yep.
I guess so. But just one thing, Dr. Rao will only come in a bit later. He won't join as early, so just need to watch out for him. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, guys. I'm going to go off.
Oh, and by the way, today's intro would be a little bit longer because I have to mention about International Coaching Day and the C4C that's happening in parallel.
Okay.
So do you want me to stop at 8:50?
No, 8:55.
No. 55. 55.
Okay. All right. Okay. I got my post-it.
Have fun. Have a great session.
Have
We go.
awesome.
Okay, I'm going to let the natives in now.
I begin to share screen. I put up the wall.
Okay.
Yep.
Here's everyone.
Good Wednesday morning, everyone. Happy Hump Day. Welcome to day 3 of ICF Singapore International Coaching Week 2020. My name is Adrian Lim, your host for this webinar. Thank you for starting your day with us. This morning, we have all the way from the East Coast of the US, Dr. Srikumar, who will join us at 9 a.m. And he will speak on the topic, Eliminate Stress and Cultivate Extreme Resilience. Dr. Rao will come on later. But from now till just about 8:55, we have Coach Zelina Sim, who will take us on a mindfulness journey and get us to an optimal state of learning. Zelina Sim is Country Director and Partner of Potential Project. Potential Project is a global leadership, training, organizational development, and research firm. In her role, she delivers transformative leadership programs to her global clients. Zelina is also an ICF credentialed coach. She has a keen interest in neuroscience and offers decades of mindfulness experience to her coaching clients. Incidentally, Zelina is a chartered accountant by training and established her career as a finance and business consultant in Australia, the UK, and Singapore. Thank you, Zelina, for leading this session. I hand the floor over to you.
Thank you so much, Adrian. Just a quick round of show of thumbs. Everyone can hear me okay? Excellent. Thank you so much. It is Wednesday, so appreciate that reminder, Adrian. And it's lovely to wake up and come together as a community for those of us who are coaches and for those of us who are just interested with human and self-transformation. So it is a pleasure indeed. Want to acknowledge all the hard work by ICF Singapore for this wonderful program this week, and I hope many of you have enjoyed it so far. So most of us actually, you know, when we start our day, we kind of rush into work mode quite quickly, especially now in lockdown. We tend to have these blurred lines, right, between work and home. So before we start, I just want to warm your fingers up. And Kevin, if you could help me just pull up this poll. Just want to get a sense of what is your experience with mindfulness practice? So if you can just vote so that I get a sense of our community here. Excellent. And I'll just wait a minute or so for everyone to put their votes in. Thank you. And I'll speak as this poll. We'll just leave this open, Kevin, for maybe a minute more.
Sure.
Yeah. So quite often we jump into work mode very early on in the day, and we don't give ourselves a chance to actually attend to our cortisol levels, which tend to actually be the highest in the mornings. This was especially helpful for us during the times when we were living out in the jungle or in caves where, a saber-toothed tiger could be lurking around the corner just at sunrise to get hold of us. But these days there are no more saber-toothed tigers. Perhaps, yes, I would say many of us start scrolling our emails before our eyes are fully open. And perhaps our emails are modern day saber-toothed tigers. So for those of you who have tried the practice before, and that's more than half of you, and a third of you are practitioners, I ask for your patience as I guide through the practice this morning, and an open mind, because many of us have come to this at a different kind of modality and a different tradition, perhaps. And I would like to say that the mindfulness that we lead is secular. It is something that is you're able to bring into your work life and your life at home. Thank you very much, Kevin. You can close the poll. And science has shown that 10 minutes of continuous practice starts building new neural networks in our mind towards less mind wandering and less distraction, towards more focus and attention. So that's what we're going to do today together. Again, it's voluntary, so I assume all of you who have logged in now are interested to practice together. And we're going to do a 10-minute practice. And then after that, it will give us some time to kind of come together as a community to talk about it and support each other. Okay. So as the theme we're going into, as Adrian has said, Dr. Rao is going to speak to us about resilience. The practice I'm going to lead this morning is about cultivating focus and awareness. I find that's always very helpful in the morning, with a bit of relaxation, but also towards a little bit of resilience, about how we can unhook our minds or have the awareness that we are perhaps hooking onto unhelpful mindsets, how we can actually have that awareness to unhook ourselves and rebalance the mind so that we are more calm, centered, and able to problem solve, able to help others, especially at times like this where it's uncertain and uncharted. Okay, so a bit of a thumbs up if you're ready to go. Move around a little bit. Excellent, thank you very much. And settle yourself into a posture that will be helpful for this practice. So most of us in the workplace, most of us when we attend to clients, we're seated on a chair. So I would recommend that you just stay seated. All you need to do is get into a posture that is helpful for the practice. And what I mean by that is you need to ground your feet flat on the ground, sit upright, alert but relaxed is what I like to call it. Close your eyes if you're comfortable to do so. If it is distracting for you to have the video on, then just turn that off, because quite often we end up looking at ourselves more than other people. And you only need to be able to hear me. You don't need to be able to see me. So on that note, I'd like to invite you to close your eyes if you feel safe to do so, or just lower your gaze at a spot in front of you. And just wriggle about until you feel comfortable to settle into your body. And like I said, we'll just be doing this practice for 10 minutes today. The invitation is for those of you who have tried this before and are comfortable to go the whole 10 minutes, please do so. For those of you who at some point feel some discomfort or some frustration or a sense that you want to just leave the practice, you are very welcome to do so, and then come back to it whenever you're comfortable. So I'd like to invite you, with your eyes closed or your gaze lowered, to bring your attention to your feet. And just notice how the soles of your feet are feeling this morning. Now I'd like you to bring your attention to where your hips and your back may be in contact with your chair. And just notice how that's feeling. Now I'd like to invite you to bring your attention to your shoulders and your neck. And as you allow your body to breathe by itself, perhaps as you breathe in, just scan your body for where you might be holding some tension, or where you notice that you might be a little bit stiff or and with your out breath, just allow some relaxation to naturally occur in those parts of your body. So for those of us who have joined us, just seated as you are, ground your feet, closing your eyes if you're comfortable to do so. And we're purely using our breath as an anchor for us to scan our bodies quickly where we might be holding tension. So in breath, scan your body. Out breath, release. And let's just do this in silence together for the next 1 minute. And so as we use our breath as our anchor, there is really no need to change the way that you are breathing in any way. Your body has breathed by itself very efficiently for many, many years. There is no need for you to get involved with that. So by simply using your breath as an anchor for your attention, your in-breath and your out-breath, see if now you can choose a shape or a posture that you would like to be in for the next 90 minutes or so that would be helpful for you to maintain this calm, focus, and attention. Just like how you're maintaining your attention on your in-breath and your out-breath. Gentle, not forced, just present. Our minds are amazing machines that have been attuned to wonder, to problem solve, to fix. And so if you notice thoughts, sensations, feelings, these are what we call distractions. The mindfulness practice is not about clearing these distractions, but simply being aware of them, saying thank you to them, and practicing putting them aside. So the mindfulness practice is about attention and focus. It's a serious mind training practice for us to firstly be aware of these distractions, watch them pass like clouds on a windy day or traffic on a busy road as you're waiting to cross. So, distractions arise for you in the sense of sounds, thoughts. Notice them, simply relax, release them, and gently return your attention to observing your breath. And waiting for the next distraction to come by. And so let's continue this practice for the next half a minute in silence. So, a quick reminder of instructions. You want to be in a posture that is helpful for you to be alert but relaxed. Just simply drawing your attention to your in-breath and out-breath and observing how that feels for you. You're welcoming distractions, allowing them to come. Simply relaxing as they do, releasing them. As you watch clouds on a windy day go by, and returning to the practice of observing your breath and training your mind towards focus and attention. And as we draw this practice to a close, let's come back to our highest intention for why we are here today. Tune into why you've signed up, why you've showed up. And perhaps invite a companion. Bring someone to mind, someone apart from yourself, who you'd like to be of service to, who may be helpful for you as an energetic companion to your day. And include them in your attention and intention, that whenever your mind has wandered to a thought, a sensation, or a sound, or merely just drifted, simply bring your attention back to your breath deliberately, enjoy an in-breath and an out-breath, and refresh your mind for presence and attention. So over the next few breaths, letting go of the practice by bringing your attention to your feet, bringing your attention to your hands, the awareness of the space that you occupy around you, opening your eyes whenever you're ready, and gently welcoming yourself back. So, the chat is open. Adrian, we have 5 more minutes before you do your introduction to Dr. Rao. And in this 5 minutes, I would like anyone, feel free to unmute if that's what you'd like to do, or write on the chat any questions, observations, any comments. Thank you. I'm glad everyone enjoyed it. There are also always people who find it difficult. So I welcome those observations as well. It is a great way to start your day. Personally, I like to say that I'm in this work because I need it the most. So I practice constantly throughout the day. Especially now during lockdown and circuit breaker. Yeah. So anyone got any questions about the practice itself? I did a lot more guidance than I would usually do, because I understand there are many of us here who are enjoying this for the first time or not regular practitioners. Thank you for your feedback. Yeah, I find it's helpful, especially for us who are interested in helping others or being of service, to sometimes bring an intention or bring an energetic companion with us. It kind of helps us focus a little bit more. Thank you. I'm glad regular practitioners have found it useful. I'm back on at 10:30 if you want to join for another practice today. Okay, so we've got a good question here that's come up. What is the difference between meditation and mindfulness? Right. So, great question. I like to say there are a lot of ways that people will answer this. I will say that meditation often has connotations of some traditional or spiritual intention behind it, whereas mindfulness is a secular coining of this practice. Some of us also call it mind training. And I would say, for me, it is skillful means. Some people are fine to call it meditation. Some people prefer to call it mindfulness. Some people prefer to call it mind training. At the end of the day, we all spend a lot of time looking after our physical bodies, maybe our academic health, but we really spend almost no time looking after our minds. And so this is what this practice is. Okay, how about if, for those regular practitioners out there, how about I throw you a question? It's too early in the morning for powerful questions, so it's a very simple question. Many of us, initially when we start off with the practice, struggle to get into some sort of routine. We know it's good for us, just like physical exercise, but it's just so hard to find even 5 minutes in the day. Have you got any tips to help those who are interested to get into a regular practice? Feel free to unmute or type in the chat. So the simple question is, how can people help themselves to get into a regular practice? Thank you, Anita. So you've got it, schedule it into your calendar. Excellent. And I would add to that, find another name for it. Don't call it mind training practice. Call it something exciting for yourself. So you look at it and you're like, oh, yeah. Make an appointment with yourself. Call it a treat. Yes. Excellent. Me time. Thank you, Anne. So I find for me, first thing in the morning is always a great way to start the day. Also to put some intentions out so that we're constantly in the right space of service to others and ourselves. I do another practice somewhere in the middle of the day as I transit into different roles. And I do one at the end. It is about discipline. It's also a little bit like when we first get into physical exercise, right? We've got to get into some sort of routine first, and then start reaping some benefits and then coming out of it. I also want to add that you're not alone. So joining a community of practitioners is always very helpful. Yes, this is indeed exercise for the mind. So I'm at 8:55. I'd like to pass the baton on to Adrian to introduce Dr. Rao. I'm deeply grateful to all of you for all your presence. Thank you for joining me in my practice this morning. And I will see you all again. I'm on LinkedIn. I've just typed my name again for those of you who need it. And over to you, Adrian.
Thank you very much, Zelina. A round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. We look forward to seeing you at 10:30, Zelina.
Great.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we still have about 5 minutes before the top of the hour. This time, I would just encourage you, if you need to take a biological break, if you need to go grab yourself a cup of water or your morning cup of coffee, now's a good time to do that. So we will stay muted for the next 5 minutes and we will come back at 9 o'clock. Thank you. Good, beautiful Wednesday morning, everyone. Welcome to day 3 of ICF Singapore International Coaching Week 2020. My name is Adrian Lim. I will be your host for this webinar. Thank you for joining us. It's wonderful to see so many familiar faces from our previous 7 webinars. Incidentally, today is International Coaching Day, everyone. So as ICF coaches, we are leading the future and pursuing a powerful vision. And it is ensuring that coaching is an integral part of a thriving society, and every ICF member represents the highest quality of professional coaching. So we invite you, dear ICF coaches, to select a coaching client in your community or circle of friends who will benefit from coaching. And what we would like to invite you to do this afternoon is to donate a 1-hour coaching session to that person. All right, this is a global initiative and ICF Singapore is supporting that. Also, as an extension of ICW 2020 and happening right now as I speak, 15 ICF Singapore credentialed coaches are engaged in a virtual experience coaching session with coachees from 5 not-for-profit organizations, namely Halogen Foundation, Viva Foundation, Bone Marrow Donor Program, People's Stories, and Catholic Welfare Services. These coachees will enjoy 6 pro bono engagements over the next 6 months. I'm really excited about this morning's speaker, Dr. Srikumar Rao, who will be speaking on the topic Eliminate Stress and Cultivate Extreme Resilience. Before we begin, here are some housekeeping rules to ensure a smooth and productive webinar. Please mute your microphone throughout the session. All attendees will be on mute by default, except for open floor segments. If you do have a question or would like to share a thought or comment, please type it in the chat box on the right. You can access the chat box by going to the menu bar at the bottom and then just simply click the chat button. There will be Q&As at various points for Dr. Rao to respond to your questions. Yeah? You will also be receiving 1.5 continual coach education units or CCEUs by attending this webinar. Now, this is important. In order to receive your CCEU certificate, you must attend this live webinar in full. Partial CCEUs will not be issued. At the end of this webinar, we will show you a QR code and a link that will lead you to an online form that collects your certificate details and gather your feedback. Please make sure that your full name and email address are provided in order for us to issue your certificate. We will not issue a certificate if you do not apply via this link. CCU application will close 24 hours after this webinar. You will receive your CCEU certificate by June 2020. I would now like to thank our ICF Singapore ICW 2020 conference sponsors. A big thank you to our platinum sponsor, Emergenetics. Emergenetics helps people and organizations improve communication, collaboration, and culture, resulting in positive and productive workplaces. Emergenetics is giving every attendee a virtual gift pack worth Singapore dollars 350, consisting of an Emergenetics profile and access to online resources, including a special webinar on enhancing your coaching experience with Emergenetics. You will receive an email with instructions to redeem this virtual gift package after ICW 2020. So please look out for that email next week, okay? Special thanks also to our other sponsors, the coaching app. So check out the coaching app at www.thecoachingapp.com. The coaching app puts a C-suite executive coach in your pocket. All the knowledge, guidance, and tools you need to put yourself at the center of your universe and make your personal development a reality. Starting Point, the authorized provider of everything DISC, certification and solutions, 5 behaviors of a cohesive team and building trust solutions. They specialize in customized workshops and coaching for leadership and organizational improvement and transformation. The Coach Partnership has brought the new field suite of coach training programs to Asia since 2010. Newfield has been the world's leading ontological methodology since 1991, with over 65,000 graduates worldwide. It is recognized as the gold standard within the ICF network of coach certification programs. We are now ready to begin webinar lucky number 8. So allow me to say a few words about our speaker this morning. It is his evening. Dr. Srikumar Rao is founder of the Rao Institute. He has helped thousands of entrepreneurs and executives worldwide achieve a quantum breakthrough in their personal and professional lives. Dr. Rao is one of Marshall Goldsmith's 100 coaches and a popular TEDx speaker. He is also an author and contributor to Forbes, Fortune, Harvard Business Review, and Inc. Dr. Rao was the man behind the innovative course Creativity and Personal Mastery, also known as CMP, which remains the only business school course in the world to have its own alumni association. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please join me and put your hands together to virtually welcome Dr. Srikumar Rao.
Thank you, Adrian. How are you doing?
Very well, sir. Namaste.
All right. Namaste to you too. So let me share my screen. Do you see my screen? Then we're all set. Hello, everybody. Good morning to most of you, I guess. And if some of you are in different parts of the world, then good afternoon, good evening. For me, it's good evening, almost bordering on good night. And I'm delighted to be with you today. So my topic today is how to eliminate stress and cultivate resilience. But I must tell you that this is a bait and switch, because what I'm actually going to share with you is how you can make a quantum leap in every part of your life, your personal life, your professional life, your spiritual life, your civic life. See, most of us have this notion that there is this ladder of success on which we are climbing, and we have to go up rung by rung. And it takes time and it takes effort. And I'm here to suggest to you that maybe you don't have to go up rung by rung. Maybe you can leapfrog several rungs and do it again and do it again. And in the process of doing that, you will find that stress very largely leaves your life and you become extremely resilient. Now, resilience, of course, is your ability to bounce back from adversity. Extreme resilience is when you bounce back from adversity so fast that an external observer might not even know that you had suffered any adversity. So that's what I hope to share with you. How do you make a quantum leap in your life? Well, let me tell you how you don't do it. You don't do it by working harder. In fact, working harder may actually set you back. You don't do it by working smarter. You don't do it by managing your time better. The only way you can pull this off is by learning to think differently, think radically differently. Now, the notion of thinking differently is not something new to you. You've had it mentioned to you many times. You've not only had it mentioned, but you completely embrace the idea of thinking differently. For example, have you ever been told that you should see the glass as half full rather than half empty? Or that every problem is an opportunity in disguise? Or the darkest hour is before the dawn? I'm sure you've been exposed to all of this and you believe it, you embrace the idea. So the notion of thinking differently is not new to you. You've been exposed to the idea and you embrace it. But despite that, the vast majority of persons have grave difficulty in consistently thinking differently. And the reason that persons find it difficult to think differently is that most people try to think differently by trying to think differently. It does not work very well. What I'm going to share with you today is a process by which you examine the mental models that you hold, which cause you to view the world in a particular manner. And as you make changes in these models, in these mental models, you become a different person. And as you become a different person, you think differently, you act differently. It happens organically. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. I grew up in India and in a middle-class family. My father was a government bureaucrat. My mother was a homemaker. We were not poor, but there was not a whole lot of discretionary cash lying around. So one day we were taking a walk and there was a guy who had a shelf strapped onto his shoulder and he was selling things from the shelf. And one of the things he was selling was a book called Just Like Daddy. It was a blue book and it had a picture of a little boy. He got up in the morning and he brushed his teeth just like Daddy, and he did a whole bunch of things just like Daddy. It was actually two books in one, because if you flipped it around, it became pink, and then there was a little girl who got up and did things just like Mommy. And for some reason I can't figure out, I really, really, really wanted that book. So I put in a petition and my parents looked at it. There were only a few lines of writing on each page, and I was already reading junior classics, so my petition was denied. I didn't like that very much, but that's the way the cookie crumbled. We moved on, and the guy with the shelf walked behind us, and every time I looked back, he would flash the book at me. And my mother was a very frugal lady who hardly ever bought anything for herself. But she saw a purse that she really liked and she was reaching out for it. And I saw my opening. And I dove in like a trained seal. With tears streaming down my eyes, I bawled loudly and asked how she could possibly buy something so utterly useless as a purse when there was this great educational material that they were denying me. It was a low blow. It worked. Back when the purse, I got just like Daddy, just like Mommy. There was just coolness between my parents and me for a while, but I didn't care. The reason I mentioned that is about a couple of decades after that, I was passing a flea market and I saw that book, Just Like Daddy, Just Like Mommy. And all of the memories came flooding back. But there was a difference. And the difference was that Just Like Daddy, Just Like Mommy no longer had any hold on me. I didn't want it. I didn't not want it. It was completely irrelevant to my life. I had outgrown my need for Just Like Daddy, Just Like Mommy. I'm sure if you look back on your life, you can remember dozens of things that you desperately wanted at some stage. You may have gotten it, you may not have gotten it, but it's irrelevant to your life right now. You have outgrown your need for it. So, there are many, many things in your life that at one time you desperately wanted and now you no longer want them. You've totally outgrown your need for them. They're irrelevant to your life. But if you look at your life right now, there is something that you really want and you don't have it, and it's causing turmoil in your life. Maybe you want more coaching clients. Maybe you want more coaching clients who pay you a lot of money to be coached by you. Maybe you want your in-laws to move to Australia. Maybe you want your children to get into Harvard. It doesn't matter. There's something you really want, and it's causing turmoil in your life. And my question to you is, would you rather get what you want, or would you rather outgrow your need for it? As I outgrew my need for just like daddy, just like mommy, and you have outgrown the need for countless things in your life. Don't answer the question, think about it, because that is a pretty good example of what I mean when I say part of my charter today is to try to get you to think differently. Let me tell you just a little bit about how I came to be doing what I'm doing. I came to America as a student. I came to do my PhD at Columbia Business School. I started working in corporate America, and initially I was hugely successful. My career took off like a rocket. But then I got burnt out by corporate politics, and I thought, I have a PhD. Let me go into academia where everybody is imbued with a quest for pure knowledge and politics does not exist. And I discovered soon enough that politics was alive and well in academia. I think it was Henry Kissinger who said the reason politics is so vicious in universities is because the stakes are so small. He was absolutely right. But then I was stuck in a university environment because I made a transition, and my colleagues who remained in the corporate arena moved on, and they were very successful. They rose up hierarchically. They were financially doing very well. And in the meantime, I was feeling stuck. And I remember being dejected, if not depressed. I had such a great career, such wonderful education. I blew it all, and I'm stuck, and there's no way out of this. I was really feeling sorry for myself. Now, all my life, I'd been doing a lot of reading, spiritual biography, mystical autobiography, that would take me to a wonderful place. And then I came back to the real world, and it sucked. And I remember thinking, if all of this is useful only if you sit quietly thinking peaceful thoughts, but not when you came to the hurly-burly, then it's useless. But somehow I knew that wasn't true. Somehow I knew that it was very valuable, maybe even the only thing that was very valuable. I just hadn't figured out how to make use of it. So one day I came up with my bright idea, which is, why don't I take the teachings of the world's greatest masters, strip them of religious, cultural, and other connotations, and adapt them so that they're acceptable to intelligent people in a post-industrial society. And the thought of doing that made me come alive. So I created that course. It was called Creativity in Personal Mastery. And I moved it to Columbia Business School in 1999. And it exploded. It was the only course at Columbia which was a university-wide draw. And then it spread by word of mouth. So I've taught it at many of the top business schools of the world: Columbia Business School, London Business School, Kellogg, Berkeley, Imperial College. And I now teach it privately in New York, London, and San Francisco. It also got an enormous amount of publicity. It was written up in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Fortune, Forbes, Business Week, Financial Times, Time magazines, all over the place. And the reason for that is because I made a very bold promise in the syllabus itself, which is this course will profoundly change your life. If not, we'll both fail. It's a business school course, for heaven's sake. What do you mean it'll change lives? But it really was designed to do that, because remember what I just told you. I have taken the teachings of the world's greatest masters. They completely understood the human predicament, and they came up with solutions that have been tested over millennia. But they spoke in a language and used examples that were relevant to the time and geography that they were in. And persons in a modern post-industrial society don't necessarily relate well to them. So what I did is translate. I took their great concepts, stripped them of religious, cultural, and other connotations, and adapted them into exercises. And this methodology has now been tested in top business schools, major corporations. They absolutely work. So that is why I can share with you. Please don't treat this presentation as just another presentation, because the concepts that I'm going to share with you are truly life-changing. And I can tell you in all humility and in all humbleness and sincerity that if you go back and actually apply some of the concepts I will share with you today, your life will change. No ifs, ands, or buts. Just, you don't have to believe anything. Just go back and actually try them, and your life will change. Okay, so that's by way of background. That's me over there. And if you were to order my books immediately from Amazon, my publishers will be very happy. Now, I'm supposed to teach you how to eliminate stress. So if you're feeling stress in your life and you want to eliminate stress, this is what you have to do. And let me tell you, this absolutely works. Are you ready? If you want to eliminate stress in your life, here's what you should do. I'm sorry, that was too good an opportunity for me to pass up. I have asked thousands of persons on 6 continents, do you have stress in your life? And most persons report that there is more stress in their life now than ever before. So naturally I ask them, why do you feel stress in your life? And as you can readily imagine, I got dozens of answers, maybe hundreds of answers. But I was able to boil them down into 8 major factors why people believe they are undergoing stress. Let me repeat that. There are 8 major factors why people feel that there is stress in their life. And I'm going to share those with you right now. These categories are not mutually exclusive, but they're fairly distinct from each other. So as we go through this, I would like you to examine your life and tell me whether you believe this is a reason why you feel stress in your life. The first reason is financial. I do not have enough. There are mortgage payments due. There are my son's school and college tuitions due. And I do need to buy a bigger house, and my car is old. And there are all kinds of things that I need. And for some reason, I don't feel I have enough. And by the way, when we're talking about financial, it's not necessarily just your personal finances. Maybe it's your company as well, if you are an entrepreneur. Maybe you want to undertake a major expansion. Maybe you want a new advertising and marketing program for your coaching business. And the bank doesn't give you credit, and your creditors start demanding early payment, and your customers take longer to pay. Doesn't matter. For some reason or the other, finances are causing you to stay awake at night. One factor. Factor number 2, relationships. Typically, it is with partner or spouse, but can also be with children, parents, siblings, customers, clients, workers, bosses, you name it. You would like your relationships to be smooth and harmonious, but they're really like what the picture on the slide is showing you. You don't want it to be that way, but that's the way it is. So relationships can be a cause of stress. Number 3, children. What are children? Children are bundles of joy sent to bring meaning and purpose in your life. And true they are. But children do the darndest thing, and they begin early. Have you noticed that? They poop right after you change them. They fall in love with the most inappropriate persons. They drop out of school. So yes, children can be bundles of joy sent to bring meaning into your life, but they can also be a stressor in your life. Business and career. Given your smarts, given your hard work, given your attitude, you expect that you want to be at a particular point in your life, but darn it, you're just not where you would like to be. Somehow, you haven't achieved all that you know you're capable of achieving. And this bothers you. So business and career can be a stressor. Health. You'd like to bench press a couple of 100 pounds. You'd like to run the marathon. You'd like to run the marathon in under 2 hours, which would be a really, really, really big deal. But your doctor wants to see you again, and he thinks that more tests are needed. What tests? Why? What's wrong? And of course, in these coronavirus days, I don't have to talk more about what the impact on health could be. And by the way, when we're talking about health, it's not just necessarily your own health we're talking about. Many of you have elderly parents or relatives, and there is stuff floating around like the coronavirus, like Alzheimer's, like Parkinson's, dementia. So that could add to the feeling of pressure that you feel. So health is a reason why many people are stressed. Then there is the big stuff, the external stuff, politics, climate, crime, environment, women's rights. I don't need to say a great deal more about that. All you have to do is wait for the headlines of any news program or read the headlines on any newspaper. And how many of you feel that you have too much to do and not enough time to do it all? I get everybody with this one. And last but not least, I am not where I want to be. At this stage of your life, you want to be at a particular place in terms of your career, in terms of your health, in terms of all of the other factors are, and you're just not where you think you should be. And that could cause you stress too. Now, remember, I began my presentation by telling you that part of my charter today is to get you to think differently. Well, we're going to begin that process right now. Those 8 factors I put down that you think are the reason you feel stress, absolutely not true. There is one reason and only one reason you feel stress in your life. Let me repeat that. There's only one reason you feel stress in your life. And the only reason you feel stress in your life is that you have a very rigid idea of this is how the universe should be, and the universe is not playing ball with you. You feel that your clients, your prospects should be seeking you out as this is the person I want to be coached by. And they're not lining up in front of your door. You feel that you should be able to command a certain price for your services, and you quote that, and your client says, gee, that was a little bit more than I thought I should be, so let me get back to you. You would like your children to study hard so they can get into Harvard, but they're more interested in screens and not the kind of screens you would want them to be interested in. So whichever way you look at it, you have a very rigid idea. This is how the universe should be. And the universe is going its own merry way and not paying any attention at all to what you would like it to be like. And you resent this, and you resist this, and in that resistance and resentment, you create the stress in your life. And that's the only reason you feel stress in your life. This is such an important point. I'm going to pause while you consider it. You want your life to be this way, and it's going that way and not where you would like it. And that is the only reason you feel stress in your life. Let's go further. I will readily grant you that you do not think of your life in this way, but I'm now inviting you to think of your life in this way. Your entire life is an endless quest to have control over some part of your internal or external environment. Let me repeat that. Your entire life has been nothing but an attempt to have control over some part of your internal or external environment. Everything you do is an attempt to do this. Are you married? Why did you get married? Why did you marry? Because you had in the back of your mind the notion, well, here's this person, and I kind of like him or her, and if we get married, then there will be love and companionship and great sex. It seems like a good thing, so let's go do it. And by the way, those of you who've done that, have you realized that happily ever after does not exist except in Hollywood and possibly Bollywood? Regardless, that's the reason you got married. Are you a coach? Well, why did you become a coach? You thought, well, if I become a coach, then I'm going to help people overcome limitations, and they will be freed from their mental constraints, and they will go on and achieve great things, and that is so satisfying. That's what I want to do. Let me become a coach. It was an attempt to control some part of your internal or external environment. Do you have children? Why do you have children? Well, perhaps because your partner said we've got to have children and you wanted to please your partner. Or perhaps it was because, it'll be fun to have children. You think about all the wonderful times when you played with other people's children and said, wouldn't it be good to have one of my own? And let's do it. It'll add fulfillment to my life. So you did. It was an attempt to control some part of your internal or external environment. Everything you do is an attempt to have control over some part of your internal or external environment. In fact, your life is nothing but an endless quest to have control. I have some good news for you. You do not have control. It gets better. You never had control. It gets still better. You never will have control. Control is a myth. It's an illusion. What you have is the illusion of control. Now, please understand, I am not knocking the illusion of control. I think the illusion of control is fantastic. The illusion of control is what makes you get up in the morning, is what makes you make plans, is what makes you devise strategies and execute on those strategies. It's what's made you as successful as you are today. So I am not knocking the illusion of control. I think the illusion of control is fantastic. But use the illusion of control, knowing that it is the illusion of control. Because in your life, at some point, it will break down. And when it breaks down, if you are using the illusion of control, knowing that it is the illusion of control, you'll simply say, this is the time it broke down. But if you use the illusion of control, not knowing that it's the illusion of control, that's when you go to pieces. Can you remember any time in your life when something happened which was so totally unexpected that it threw all of your plans into a cocked hat? I'm sure you can recall many such instances. Let me give you an example. I live in Long Island, which is roughly a suburb of New York City, and I love reading the New York Times. And I have home delivery of the New York Times. So when you have the home delivery of the New York Times, it's supposed to be on your driveway at 5:30 in the morning. My paper was not there at 5:30 in the morning. It wasn't there at 6:30 in the morning. Sometimes it wasn't there at 7:30 in the morning. And every once in a while, when I'm not restricted, like I am right now, I go to Manhattan for meetings. And when I do, I take the Long Island Railroad. And when I'm on the train, I like to read my paper. And I couldn't read my paper because the paper wasn't there. So I called up to complain about it. And the customer service representative was very, very, very polite. Dear Mr. Rao, thank you so much for being a home delivery subscriber to the New York Times. We're so sorry you're having this problem. And she was so nice, I felt good, and I hung up, and my paper continued to not be there. So I called up a second time. And the second clerk was, if anything, even more friendly and polite. Dear Mr. Rao, thank you so much for being a home delivery subscriber to the New York Times. We're so sorry you had to call up again for this problem. Let me take care of it for you. And again, I felt good. I hung up, and the paper continued to not be there. So I called up a third time. And by this time, my attitude was, I don't want you to feel sorry for me. I just want you to get me my paper on time. And by the way, I'm not making all of this up. You can go to yelp.com and read my scathing review of the home delivery service of the New York Times. And now it became a point of pride with me. So I took action. I called. I wrote scathing reviews on Yelp. I mentioned it on Twitter. I went up to the local distributor and then the regional distributor and then the national distributor and made myself sufficiently unpleasant that something changed. And all of a sudden, my paper started to be on my driveway at 5:30 in the morning. In fact, sometimes it would even get there at 4:30 in the morning. The problem was that the person who delivered the newspaper had a very noisy car. And he would throw the paper and it would land with a plop on my driveway. And my wife is a very sensitive sleeper and she would get up and guess who she blamed for this? I would have paid to have the paper delivered at 8:30 in the morning. Unexpected stuff happens. You do not have control. You never had control. You never will have control. What you have is the illusion of control. And at some point in your life, something will happen that is so unexpected that all of your plans will be tossed aside. It has happened before. It will happen again. So, given the fact that control is a myth, it's an illusion, how can you eliminate stress and cultivate extreme resilience? Well, I'm going to explain that to you, but before I do, I have to share some concepts with you. And the first concept is mental chatter. Mental chatter is an internal monologue that you have going on in your head all the time. It begins when you get up in the morning, is with you throughout the day. In fact, it's with you right now, when out of politeness, you should be listening to my chatter, but instead you're listening to your chatter. In the short time I've been speaking, how many of you have already gone someplace else? Oh, gee, what's for lunch? Which phone call do I have to return? Oh, what are my plans for this evening? I rest my case. Mental chatter is like an unwelcome relative who's shown up at your house and you can't kick him out. So you try to live your life as best as you can with your mental chatter. You ignore it, you suppress it, you work around it, but do the best you can despite your mental chatter. And this is a huge mistake. And the reason it's a huge mistake is because you actually create your life with your mental chatter. Let me repeat that. You actually create your life with your mental chatter. You think you live in a real world. You don't. You live in a construct. and you built that construct with your mental chatter and your mental models, which I'm going to be getting to shortly. Every single one of you is living in the matrix. Have you seen the movie, The Matrix? If you haven't, I would strongly recommend that you go see it. It is available on Amazon Prime, or you can buy a DVD. But go see The Matrix. We're all living in the matrix. The only difference is that this is not a matrix created by an alien civilization out to enslave you. You created it with your mental chatter. There's a very interesting teaching which comes to us from the Buddhist tradition, and it is the parable of the second arrow. And the Buddha asked Ananda, his disciple, Ananda, if an arrow were to hit you in the arm, would it not be very painful? Ananda nodded his head. Yes, Lord, it would be very painful. And if a second arrow were to hit you exactly where the first arrow hit you, would it not be even more painful? Ananda nodded his head. Yes, Lord, it would be even more painful. And then the Buddha asked a question. Why then do you shoot the second arrow? And I noticed that some of you were looking perplexed, so let me illustrate by means of a story. There was a woman, and her a very loving woman. She had a son whom she loved dearly, and the son turned 16, and he got his driver's license, the provisional driver's license. And one day he comes up to his mother and says, hey, Mom, I'm getting together with a bunch of my friends. Can I take the car? And the mother says, of course not. You just got your provisional license. You can't drive. Where do you have to go? I'll drop you. And he said, no, Mom, you don't understand. I have to take the car and you can't be there. And the mother said, no. I won't be there if you don't want me to. There's Uber, there's Lyft, and there's cabs. So why don't you simply take one of those? No, Mom, you don't understand. I have to take the car and you can't be there. And I have to drive myself and I have to drive. Don't you understand? And the mother says no. And the child begs and pleads and wheedles. And you know how children are. And bit by bit, the mother starts giving way and she extracts all kinds of promises. No drinking. No, Mom. No drinking. And you'll call me when you get there. Yes, I'll call you. And you'll be back by 10 o'clock. Yes, I'll be back by 10 o'clock. And finally, reluctantly, she gives him the car keys. And of course, once he gets the car keys, he forgets all about the promises he made. He goes off. He has too many beers. He forgets to call. Stays past 10 o'clock. And on the way back home, he has an accident, is seriously injured, is in the hospital, has been operated on immediately. And his mother was with him in the hospital. And when he came to the recovery room, she goes back home to have a quick shower and change so she can go back to the hospital. And at that time, her friend calls. And a friend says, how could you ever have let him have the car keys? What kind of a mother are you? You're not a mother, you're a murderer. Are you shocked that a friend would say something like that at a time like this? Probably. But you'd probably be less shocked if I said, it wasn't her friend who said that, it's what she told herself. That is the second arrow. And the second arrow is always delivered by means of mental chatter. It's bad enough having your son in the operating room, not knowing whether he's going to recover or not, or what the after effects of that operation would be. But to tell yourself that you're a bad mother, that you're a murderer, does it help in any way? Of course not. But we do it all the time. That is what is known as shooting the second arrow. In fact, for the clients I coach and the persons who take my program, if I could get them to stop at the second arrow, their life would be ever so much better. Most of the time, they're busy shooting 6th, 7th, 10th, and 200th arrows at themselves. Here's a very simple experiment. We're going to do that right now. I invite you to take 30 seconds and think about any issue which is troubling you right now. And I will guarantee you that your mental chatter about that situation is making it at least an order of magnitude worse. Any situation, your mental chatter about that situation is making it worse. Are you, for example, facing a crisis at work? Maybe you're putting in very long hours, and your mental chatter goes, why do I have to do this? Why did I pick this damn occupation? Maybe I should have joined another company. I don't like doing this. How will my work be received? Am I going to be able to solve this project or not? Oh, I'm so sleepy. All of that is mental chatter. And it's making the situation worse. No matter what situation you're facing that you find troubling, your mental chatter about that situation is making it at least an order of magnitude worse. We are experts in shooting the second arrow. The next concept I want to share with you is the concept of mental models. And a mental model is a notion you have that this is the way the world works. You have dozens of models, maybe hundreds of models. You got a model for how do I find new coaching clients? You got a model for how do I price my services? How do I decide how much to charge my new coaching client? You got a model for how do I bring up my children? You got a model for how do I find a person to marry? You got dozens of models, maybe hundreds of models. The problem is not that you have mental models. Mental models are wonderful things. They help you make sense of unstructured situations. They save you time. Mental models are wonderful, wonderful creatures. The problem is not that you have mental models. The problem is that you don't recognize that you have mental models. You think this is the way the world works. But this is not the way the world works. This is your model of this is the way the world works. And the more you believe in that model, the more evidence you seem to get that this in fact is the way the world works. And very soon you built a silo around yourself that's so thick you find it difficult to break out of. Now, all of this seems very abstract. So let me bring it home to you with an example. And I don't want you to just listen to me right now. I want you to use your imagination and actually put yourself in the situation that I'm about to outline to you. You are going to a meeting, an important meeting. You're driving. You are stuck in a traffic jam. And this is not a run-of-the-mill traffic jam. This is the mother of all traffic jams. It's a really, really, really hot day. And the air conditioning in your car has broken down. Let me repeat that. You got that straight? You're going to an important meeting, a very important meeting. You're driving, you're running late, you're stuck in a massive traffic jam. It's really hot and you have no air conditioning. Are you there? Now, all of a sudden, somebody cuts in front of you and almost causes an accident. And then he cuts in front of another car in front of you and almost causes a second accident. What are your feelings towards the driver of that car? It's perfectly safe to say that your feelings towards the driver of that car are not those of loving kindness. Road rage was invented in California, but it traveled the world very, very, very fast. You're really angry at that person. Now, let me share some information with you. This person who cut you off so rudely and almost caused an accident had received some very disquieting news. His son was involved in a serious accident and has to be operated on immediately. And he was desperately trying to get to the hospital with no knowledge of whether or not he would ever see his son alive again. Now, what happens when I share that information with you? Can you feel the wave of anger and frustration drain out of you to be replaced with compassion for a fellow human being in an unfortunate predicament? Of course. But you don't really know whether the guy who cut you off was an inconsiderate jerk or a distraught father, right? But now that I have shared this information with you, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go hire a private detective to look into the matter. And if the private detective reports back to you that the guy was an inconsiderate jerk, you'll be really pissed off. But if the private detective reports back to you that the guy was a distraught father, you'll feel great compassion. But until you know for sure, you're going to remain neutral. Is that what you're going to do? Of course not. You're not going to hire a private investigator to look into the matter. But it really doesn't matter. You don't know whether the guy who cut you off was a distraught father or an inconsiderate jerk, but it doesn't matter. You had the choice of determining what is the emotional domain you occupy. And you made a decision. Let me repeat that. You had a choice and you made a decision. Probably you did not even think about this until I peeled it back as I just did. It all happened so fast, you simply took it for granted. That's the way it is. And if you go back and you talk to your wife or you talk to your husband, you'd say, you know, this blank, blank, blank expletive deleted cut me off, and it's only my superior driving ability that prevented a major accident from taking place. And this guy is a expletive deleted. Right? Maybe not. You had a choice and you made a decision. Now that I've peeled it back, is it clear to you that you had a choice and you made a decision? Probably. The reason you made the particular choice that you did is because of the mental chatter that you entertain and the mental models that you hold. And the reason this is particularly important is you face such a juncture in your life dozens of times every day. Let me repeat that. You face such a turning point, a juncture, an inflection point in your life dozens of times every day. And in the vast majority of these instances, you choose to occupy an emotional domain where you feel anxious, fearful, dejected, and you never recognize that it's a choice you had and a decision you made. And it all happens because of the mental chatter that you entertain and the mental models that you hold. That's how powerful these concepts are. Let's move on. So I want to share a number of methods that you can use, which will take you to a better place. And one of them is called the mental screensaver. Think of some time in your life when things were going smoothly, you were operating at the top of your form and thoroughly enjoying what you did. Recreate that scene in your head like a mental movie. My advice to persons is to have 3 or 4 such movies that you create. One should be about your professional situation. One should be about a personal situation, perhaps one involving friends. But every time you are in a position where you have a gap, like say, for example, you're driving and you stop at a traffic light, you got a gap of about 30 seconds. Or you're trying to take the subway and you miss one and you have to wait for the next one, you got a gap of about 5 minutes. Or somebody cancels an appointment on you, you got a gap of a half hour. Every time you have such a gap, where does your mind go to? Consciously bring one of these mental screensavers and play it around in your head. And you will find that you go to a different emotional domain than you would have gone to if you had, for example, turned on the news. Now, here is a very important concept. We have the unfortunate tendency to spend an enormous amount of our emotional energy on the 2, 3, or 4 things that are wrong in our lives. More precisely, on the 2, 3, or 4 things that we have arbitrarily decided is wrong in our life. And we completely ignore the 30, 40, 50, 200 things which are pretty damn good about our lives. Now think about it. Everybody listening to this podcast is incredibly privileged. Are you incredibly privileged? Think about it. Do you have to bother about whether you're going to have dinner tomorrow? Do you have to bother about whether you have a roof over your head or a bed to sleep in? You do recognize that any of this is a big deal in a big chunk of the world outside, right? So when I pointed out to you, you nod your head. Yes, you feel you are incredibly privileged. But the problem is you don't feel incredibly privileged. You feel stressed out and put upon. Why is this? That's because of where you shine your awareness of. Your awareness is like a flashlight. Let me repeat that. Your awareness is like a flashlight. What does a flashlight do? A flashlight lights up whatever you shine it on. Shine it on the floor and it lights up the floor. Shine it on the table and the table is illuminated. Your awareness is like that. Right now, direct your awareness to the chair on which you are sitting. And when you direct your awareness to the chair on which you're sitting, you can feel the fabric, the upholstery, you can feel the pressure of your buttocks on the chair. You couldn't do that before, but you can now because you chose to be aware of it. So your awareness is just like a flashlight. Now, how do most of us use this flashlight? We shine it on the things that are wrong in our lives, or the things that we have decided are wrong in our life. And they expand and take up our entire horizon, and they take us into not so nice emotional domains. Flip that around. Use the flashlight of your awareness and shine it on the many things that are so good about your life. This is an experiential exercise. It's not a thinking exercise. So if you're a type A individual who lives in your head, you might be tempted to say, good health, check. Food to eat, check. Roof over head, check. It doesn't work like that. You have to actually experience the feeling of appreciation, gratitude, and not think it. I would recommend you do this just before you go to bed. When you get up in the morning, don't go immediately to the space of, oh my God, there's too much to do. I don't have enough time to do it all. But bring back that feeling of appreciation, gratitude, and bathe in it, marinate in it, wallow in it, soak in it. And as you go through the day, periodically bring up that same feeling of appreciation, gratitude, and immerse yourself in it. It is my hope that eventually your default emotional domain will be that of appreciation and gratitude. And why is that? It's because when you're in the domain of appreciation and gratitude, you're not anxious, you're not fearful, you're not worried. They cannot coexist. So cultivate, if you can, the emotional domain of appreciation and gratitude. Galileo got into trouble a few hundred years ago, and the major reason he got into trouble is because he postulated that perhaps the sun does not move around the earth, perhaps the earth moves around the sun. And every single one of you is convinced that Galileo got it wrong. The earth does not move around the sun, it revolves around you personally. And you really believe that. Now you're laughing now, but I'm trying to make a perfectly serious point. You really do believe that the earth revolves around you personally. Think about how no matter what happens, you very quickly bring it down to what's the impact on me? Your partner gets a great job offer and you say, oh my God, how is this going to affect our relationship? Your daughter drops out of high school to begin an in-depth exploration of controlled substances. And you say, how much does rehab cost? And will insurance cover this? No matter what happens, you have an incredible ability to bring it down to what's the impact on me. We all live in a me-centered universe. And what I would like to share with you is that if that is where you spend most of your time, if you are living predominantly in a me-centered universe, you are going to live by and large a mediocre existence punctuated with flashes of pleasure, but essentially meaningless. That's just the way it is. You live in a me-centered universe and you're going to live a mediocre existence. The only way you can break out of that into living a life, as I outlined for you earlier, where you're radiantly alive every day, where you could sink to your knees in involuntary gratitude of the tremendous good fortune that has been bestowed to you, is if you can find a cause which is bigger than you are, a cause which brings a greater good to a greater community, and you have tremendous flexibility in defining both the greater good and the greater community. But unless you can find something like that to which you can subsume, if not your whole life, a big chunk of it, you're going to live a mediocre existence. Ancient England, site of a great cathedral being constructed, and the architect was going to the scene of the construction. He came across three people, all of whom were doing the exact same thing. There was a big block of stone, and they beat it with a hammer until it broke. And he asked the first guy, what are you doing? And he said, can't you see I'm breaking rocks? Why are you doing it? Because I get paid a half an hour a day. And the second guy said, I'm helping build the wall behind me. And the third guy said, I'm helping build a great cathedral. And when it is done, people are going to come from all over the world and they will be inspired. And I will have had a small role to play in that. And the third guy was the only guy who recognized the architect. And he said, truth be told, I don't like doing this. It's backbreaking labor and I can get better wages for less effort. I'm only doing it because I want to learn. Will you teach me to build a cathedral? 20 years from that day, the guy who was breaking rocks was dead. He no longer had strength to swing a hammer and he starved. The guy who was helping build the wall behind him was living a life of desperate poverty. But the guy who was helping build a cathedral was on his way to building his first cathedral. That is a choice that every one of us has every day. I repeat, that is a choice every one of us has every day. We can get up in the morning and we can help build a cathedral. Or we can get up in the morning and break rocks. I cannot define for you the cathedral that you're building. You're the only person who can do that. But I can tell you that unless you find and define the cathedral that you are building, you're going to live an essentially meaningless life. You have to simultaneously live at the 6-inch level and the 50,000 foot level, not one or the other, both simultaneously. The 6-inch level is very important. That's where the work gets done. That's where you decide, these are the phone calls I have to make. These are the emails I have to reply to. These are the tasks that I have to get done today. It's very important. That's where the work gets done. But if you spend your time only at the 6-inch level, you're going to get your nose abraded. You simultaneously have to be at the 50,000 foot level where you're looking at the arc of your life and where it is going. It's as if you were in an ocean liner in the middle of the ocean and you make a 1-degree course correction. And it doesn't seem like much, but over the course of a 2-week voyage, you'll land up 100 miles different from where you would have been. So find and define the cathedral that you are building. Anchor yourself in it, and that alone will give you meaning in your life. There's something that we do, and we do it multiple times every day, and we don't even recognize we're doing it, and it has a hugely negative impact on our life. And that is the habit we have whenever something happens to us to immediately make a judgment. This is bad, this is good. Nothing is ever neutral. Everything is either slightly good or slightly bad. And most of us tend to use the bad thing label 3 to 10 times as often as the good thing label. Your partner calls up to tell you that your in-laws are coming for dinner. This is bad. They may be staying the weekend. This is really bad. Think about it. Now understand that whenever an event occurs, it does not cause suffering. Suffering only begins the instant you decide this is bad, this is terrible. Let's assume your biggest client leaves. You now have spare capacity. But you go, oh my God, my client has left. How will this affect my income? This is terrible. And the moment you say this is terrible, at that instant, suffering begins. Suffering doesn't begin when your client resigns you. Suffering begins the instant you decide this is terrible. So let me tell you a story. This comes from the Sufi tradition. There was a man and his son, and they lived in a valley, a beautiful valley, and they were very happy. They were also dirt poor. And the man got sick and tired of being poor, and he decided he was going to become a rich man, and he was going to become a rich man by breeding horses. So he bought a stallion. Didn't have money to buy a stallion. He borrowed very heavily from the neighbors, and the very day he bought the stallion, it kicked the top bar loose from the paddock where he housed it and ran away. And the neighbors came around commiserating. You thought you were going to become a rich man, but your stallion has run away, and you still owe us money. You are destitute. And the man shrugged his shoulder and said, good thing, bad thing, who knows? That stallion fell in with a group of wild horses, and it was close to where the man lived, so he was able to entice them into the paddock, which he had repaired, so escape was no longer possible. So all of a sudden, he had the stallion back, plus a dozen wild horses, and that made him a wealthy man by the standards of that village. And the neighbors came around saying, we thought you were destitute, but you're so fortunate, you're a rich man. Fortune has smiled upon you. And the man shrugged his shoulder and said, good thing, bad thing, who knows? The man and his son started to break the horses so they could sell them on the market, and one of the horses threw the man's son and stopped on his leg, and it broke and it healed crooked. And the neighbors came around commiserating. He was such a fine young lad, and now he will never be able to find a girl to marry him. How terrible. And the man shrugged his shoulder and said, good thing, bad thing, who knows? That summer, the king of the country declared war on a neighboring country, and press gangs moved through the villages, rounding up all the able-bodied young men. But they spared this man's son because he had a crooked leg. And the neighbors had tears in their eyes as they came around and said, we don't know if we'll ever see our sons alive, but you still have your son with you. How fortunate you are. And the man shrugged his shoulder and said, good thing, bad thing, who knows? And it goes on like that forever. There is a lesson here, though. Can you remember anything that happened in your life that at the time it happened, you thought this was terrible, but you can now look back upon it and say, hey, this wasn't so terrible, or even this was good? Probably you can recall several such instances. I was speaking before the Global Leadership Summit of the Entrepreneurs Organization in San Diego. And when I got to this point in my talk, somebody in the back started waving his hand. I ignored it. He started waving both his hands. I ignored it. He got up on a chair and started waving his hand. And at that point, I could no longer ignore him because everybody was looking at him. So I said, fine, I acknowledged him. And he said, Professor Rao, I have a story. It's so relevant to what you just said. So it turned out that he was from a top engineering school in India. He came to America. He got his advanced engineering degree from Stanford. He got a job offer from one of the big tech firms, and he was looking forward to building his career. His buddies got jobs with other tech firms, and they were looking together for being together and looking forward to being together and building the careers together. But he had an immigration problem, and he had to leave the country. He didn't want to leave the country, so he had an immigration lawyer, but he didn't work, so he was forced out. And he was devastated. He thought his career was over. And he had student debt. And when you have student debt in dollars and you're earning in rupees, you're in a very bad space. But he said, Professor Rao, as a result of that happening, I met this wonderful lady, and she is now my wife. And I teamed up with two of my engineering college buddies, and we started a company, and it's going gangbusters. All of my clients are in America. I come to America at least 6 times a year, and I have a picture-perfect life. And none of this would have happened if I had not been forced to leave the country. That was the best thing that ever happened to me. So look back on your life. If you can recall something that happened, that at the time it happened you thought was bad, and you can now look back upon it and say it was actually pretty good. Is it possible, is it just barely possible that what you're today about to label bad could in X years turn out to be good? Is that possible? And if there's the slightest chance that it is possible, why are you in a hurry to label it bad? Because understand, suffering doesn't begin when an event occurs. Suffering begins the moment you say, this is bad, this is terrible. What happens if you never label it bad? Suffering never begins. Asking yourself that question moves you to a different emotional domain. And if you ask yourself the next question, is there anything that I can do to proactively make it a good thing? And all of a sudden you're moved from the realm of despair to the realm of possibility. That is how you become extremely resilient. Nothing ever phases you anymore because you never label anything bad. You never label it an adversity. You just say this happened. And then you ask yourself, is there any conceivable way in which I could actively work to make this a good thing? And as I said, you moved from the realm of despair to the realm of possibility. Mindfulness is a very powerful tool. And this is something any one of you can use, and it's ever so simple. I didn't say easy, I did say simple. Whatever task you're involved in, pour yourself into that task. As I described earlier, no matter what situation you're facing, your mental chatter about that situation makes it at least an order of magnitude worse. Instead of entertaining mental chatter, pour your emotional energy into the task at hand. Be mindful. And that has a direct bearing on the next important concept. Invest in the process, not the outcome. Most of us live our life the following way. I set a goal for myself, I tried very hard to reach it, I succeeded. Or I set a goal for myself, I tried very hard to reach it, I failed, life sucks. We live our life oscillating between elation and despair in a sinusoidal curve, and we spend more time at the despair end of the spectrum. It is a lousy way to live. There is an alternative. And once again, this is an illustration of thinking differently. Set a goal for yourself, set an ambitious goal for yourself, but once you've set the goal, forget about the goal. That's right, forget about the goal. The advantage of the goal is it establishes direction. Once the direction has been established, forget about the goal and pour all of your emotional energy into what are the actions that I have to undertake in order to meet the goal. If you meet the goal, fantastic. If you don't meet the goal, fantastic. The mistake most of us make is we think that the benefit of setting a goal and trying our level best to achieve the goal is achieving the goal. Wrong. The benefit of setting the goal and trying our level best to achieve the goal is the learning and growth that happen in us and to us as we try our level best to achieve the goal. If we actually achieve the goal, that's a bonus. If we don't achieve the goal, the learning and growth have already happened, so we are ahead of the game. See, the destination is a mirage. We're there, we tarry a few moments, and then we're off someplace else. It's beyond our control. When you obsess about the goal, you miss the journey, and the journey is the only thing you have. The journey is with you always. But here's a paradox. When you don't really obsess about the destination, and you pour all of your energy into the journey, into the actions you can undertake to meet your goal, the probability that you will meet your goal actually increases. And you will enjoy the journey. You know, people talk about, I want to climb Mount Everest. How long to you? How much time do you spend on top of Mount Everest? A few minutes to a half hour max. You get up there, your buddy takes a picture of you, your buddy gets up there, you take a picture of him, and then you're on your way down and you hope you don't get killed in an avalanche. So if you're going to climb Mount Everest, you better enjoy the weeks and months of acclimatization on base camp 1, base camp 2, and so on. Works the same way in life. The journey is the only thing you have. The destination is a mirage. You get there, you tarry a few minutes, you're off someplace else. When you pour your emotional energy into what are the actions that I have to undertake in order to meet my goal, you begin to enjoy the journey. And the probability you'll get to the destination you want actually increases. It's like you're in a negotiation. Do you realize that when you're in a negotiation, you're never in a stronger position than when you're genuinely prepared to walk away? Works exactly the same way. Invest in the process. Do not invest in the outcome. Laugh. Do something every day that really makes you burst out. I'm not talking about a smile. I'm talking about a deep-rooted belly laughter. Pause. Sit in a comfortable chair, feet on the ground, spine straight. Take 10 very deep, very slow breaths. And no matter how agitated you are, you'll become centered immediately. Every time you're agitated, every time you're overwhelmed, you're angry, you're fearful, you'll find that you're breathing slowly and in a very shallow manner. When you breathe deeply and when you breathe slowly, you'll find that anger, overwhelm tend to leave you. Another very important concept, this one comes from Julius Caesar, Shakespeare. The conspirators killed Julius Caesar because they expected to rule Rome when the dictator was dead. But remember, you don't have any control over outcomes. Two things happened that they never figured on. One was Mark Antony got up and gave his famous "Friends, Romans, countrymen" speech. And Octavian Caesar gathered up a legion and came after them. And they were defeated at the Battle of Philippi. But before that happened, Cassius comes to Brutus, and Brutus was regretting his role in the assassination of Caesar, because when Caesar said "et tu, Brute," it really struck home. So he declines Cassius's request, and as Cassius was leaving, he said, "And whether we shall meet again, I know not. Therefore our everlasting farewell take. Forever and forever farewell, Cassius. If we should meet again, why we shall smile? If not, why then this parting was well made. Think about it. You go to work and you leave your partner and your children behind. Is there any guarantee you will ever see them again? There isn't, right? What happens if you have this thought in your consciousness as you part? What happens to all of the jealousies, the irritations, the anger? They all drop away. In exactly the same way, every time you meet someone, what if it was the last time you met? Think of how it transforms the relationship, the interaction. This is a very intense exercise, so you will not be able to carry it off all the time. But you can do it some of the time, and if you do it some of the time, you will find that it transforms your relationships and your experience of life and your interactions. Einstein said the most important question you will ever ask yourself is the universe friendly? Einstein was a philosopher, not just a scientist. And he said the most important question you will ever ask yourself is the universe friendly? Most of us believe that the universe is neither friendly nor unfriendly. The universe is indifferent. Here I am doing my thing. There's the universe doing its thing. Sometimes it seems to be working for us. Sometimes it seems to be working against us. But essentially, it doesn't know I exist and couldn't care less. That's the world most of us live in. What if the universe was aware of your existence and if the universe was well disposed towards you? Friends don't shaft friends, do they? Then why does the universe give you things you don't want? You want to have clients lining up at the door, and instead your existing clients have just notified you that they will be ending their contracts. Why does the universe give you stuff you don't want? Well, what if the universe gives you stuff that you don't want, but it's exactly what you needed for your learning and growth? Like you're a small child and you want a tub of ice cream, and the universe gives you fruits and vegetables through your parents. You don't want fruits and vegetables. You want a tub of ice cream, but your parents give you fruits and vegetables. And it isn't until you're at a completely different level of maturity that you can say, thank God I got fruits and vegetables and not a tub of ice cream. What if the universe was exactly like that? It gives you not what you want, but exactly what you need for your learning and growth. Even if the universe was not benevolent, if you believe the universe was benevolent, your experience of life would improve dramatically. It's a superior mental model. And how do you adopt it? It's very simple. Look for signs that the universe is benevolent. And when you're actively looking for signs that the universe is benevolent, you'll find so many of them. Like one of the things the universe has provided you is someone who's telling you that the universe is benevolent. Look for signs and see if you can adopt the benevolent universe model. This is a story that comes from the Native American tradition, and there are many versions of it, but I like the one I'm about to share with you. There was a young brave who was growing up to take his place among the adults of the tribe, and the final rite of passage was a conversation with the medicine man. And the medicine man told him, here is this dog, friendly, intelligent, kind, trustworthy, and here is this wolf, malevolent, vicious, cruel, ready to snap at and kill anything. And the dog and the wolf are fighting, and the dog and the wolf are both inside you. And the brave asks, which one's going to win? And the medicine man says, whichever one you feed. Inside each one of us are altruistic, let's help each other and make the world a better place impulses. And in each one of us, there are let me grab everything I can for myself, and the devil take the hindmost impulses, and the two are always fighting. It is incumbent upon you to find and feed, selectively feed the dog inside you. it is also incumbent on you to find and selectively feed the dog in all the persons you meet. And when the dog in you is strong and becomes friends with the dog in the other person, magic happens in both of your lives. Very often we feed the wolf and we don't even know we're doing this. You're having a bad day at work and you go to the coffee machine and a colleague comes up and says, I'm having a bad day at work. And you say, you're having a bad day at work. Let me tell you about my bad day at work. And your bad day at work tops his bad day at work. And you go back feeling smug. And you never realize that you fed the wolf both in yourself and the other person. If instead you'd gone, you had a bad day at work, I'm having a bad day at work, is there anything that we can collectively do to make sure that nobody has such a bad day again? And now you started feeding the dog. In every conversation you have with anyone, with your colleagues, with your partner, with the Uber driver who takes you to the airport, with the guy who sells you a newspaper, just ask yourself, am I feeding the dog or am I feeding the wolf? Am I acting, saying things that make the other person feel better about himself or herself, more positive, more optimistic? Or am I doing something which drains the energy from that person? Am I feeding the dog or am I feeding the wolf? Just asking yourself that question will change the nature of your relationships. Be a civil engineer. Let's assume you're a civil engineer and I'm a county executive and I call you into my office and I want a road built from place A to place B. And where I want the road built is a mountain, a forest, and a swamp. Do you get angry at the mountain, the forest, and the swamp? Of course not. That's the terrain you've been given. And your skill as a civil engineer lies in deciding how you're going to get the road built. Are you going to go over it, under it, through it, around it? If the mountain is made of granite and the swamp is really deep, you might think in terms of raising your fees, but apart from that, it'll have no impact. You are the civil engineer for building the road to a meaningful, purposeful existence. And the problem people in your life, your disagreeable boss, your recalcitrant children, they're the forests, the mountains, and the swamp. You don't get angry at them. Your skill as a civil engineer lies in how you're going to get the road built. So every time you're overwhelmed because of the actions of someone, just ask yourself, am I being a civil engineer? And all of a sudden, you will have a completely different perspective. You're no longer angry. You're no longer fearful. You're just being a civil engineer. Be a civil engineer. And with that, we're done. We will have time for questions. If you are interested, if you liked what I heard, please go to my website. It's up there and click on the button, Join Your Community, and that will give you access to my blog and you'll hear from me. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. My email is right on the slide. And we have time for a couple of questions. Adrian, have there been any questions on the chat?
Not at this time, Dr. Rao, but I'm terribly sorry, Dr. Rao and everyone. We do have another session that is starting at 10:30.
In that case, my timing was perfect.
Yes, indeed, very much so, Dr. Rao. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would allow me, I would like to wrap up by thanking Dr. Rao for helping us manage our illusion of control, also for the life-changing secrets to eliminate our stress and cultivate our resilience. Also, to remind us to watch or perhaps even rewatch the movie The Matrix. So yeah, we know who will be on iTunes and Netflix tonight. Yeah, so,
right.
So in appreciation of Dr. Rao and for sharing all these tips with us, could I invite everyone to click on the reaction button, please, for that round of applause for Dr. Rao. Thank you very much, Dr. Rao. Thank you.
My pleasure, Adrian. So let me wish everyone a totally fantastic rest of their life.
Thank you.
Enjoy yourself. It's been my pleasure.
Before you leave, Dr. Rao, just hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. We would now like to take a group photo. Everyone, could I invite you please to turn on your cameras? Yeah? Turn on your cameras and we would like you to do one of several things, okay? So in the last 7 sessions, we've had you either, use your finger and have an I, a C, or a W. But after listening to Dr. Rao, those of you with your smartphones next to you, turn on your flashlights, please. I like it. I've got my flashlight on. Yeah. Okay, turn on your flashlights. And I'd like you to hold that pose. Don't block your face. Don't block your face. So hold that flashlight next to you. Hold that pose for about 5 to 7 seconds while we take all the photographs from all across the screens, okay? All right, everyone, big smile.
Okay, hang 10, still going.
Josephine, don't block your face.
Still going. Got 7 screens here, hang on. Still going, hang on. Hang on, we're still going.
This is just so amazing. Sophie, you've got both on. Very good.
3 more screens to go.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
Yeah. Thank you, Kevin.
We're done.
Thank you very much. So just a couple of closing comments before we bring the session to a close. Please stay on for the CCU instructions. Once again, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Emergenetics, our platinum sponsor, Emergenetics, who is generously giving out to all attendees a virtual gift pack worth 350 Singapore dollars, consisting of a Emergenetics profile and access to online tools, also to the special webinar. So look up for that email next week, okay? Also, a big thank you to our sponsors, the coaching app, puts a C-suite executive coach in your pocket, Starting Point, authorized provider of everything DISC, and 5 behaviors of a cohesive team. We also want to thank the Coach Partnership, who has brought the Newfield suite of coach training programs to Asia. Ladies and gentlemen, we have another session that's coming right up. This is Agents of Change with Dr. Shafali. And here you see on your screen right now is also the QR code for the feedback and survey.
Hi, Adrian.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rao. Have a beautiful evening. Good night rest. God bless you. Yeah. All right, so scan this QR code. All right, it's also now being added to the URL is being added to the chat. We also would like to encourage you to share your thoughts, your reactions, your learnings from all our webinars on social media. So please tag hashtag ICW SG2020 on either Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter. The ICF Singapore member, the current members who have the most number of posts on each platform will win a $30 NTUC voucher. Okay, so we'll keep this on for another few more seconds because we do have people waiting in the waiting room for our next session, and we will have to bring this to a close. I am Adrian. Thank you so much for joining Dr. Rao and myself this morning. I hope you had a great time. We look forward to seeing you in the next webinar. Take care. Bye.